Good morning, YouTubers. This is Grumpy Old Ken number 17. I pondered long and hard this week regarding what to do. I know that I was continuing the childhood thing, and I've not forgotten it, but so many things have come up in the last week that I wonder if I ought to ignore it completely. One of my favourite sayings is, oh, that's life. And that's life, and things that have gone on would very much spell out the world as it's going by. So what I'll do, I'll refer to this last 10 days and go back to the previous thing. Particularly this week has been dominated by the young lady who went up the mountain with friends in Malaya and celebrated by posing topless, etc. Rather a foolish thing to do. She was the only British girl, so consequently she's had publicity out of all significance to what she did. The interesting thing is, the girl went to school at Ockbrook, a little village in Derbyshire, and I was brought up in the grounds of that, in a cottage, in the grounds of that school, Ockbrook-Moravian-School, for much of my young life, if you like. A heck of a coincidence when you consider the population in the world, and I'll refer back to this, is over 9 billion. 9 billion. There's going to be coincidences, etc. And it struck me that I couldn't really ignore it completely. So here you are. I was brought up in the village. I was born, what you might say, is out of wedlock. There's an old-fashioned term for you today. Out of wedlock. There is no father on my birth certificate. My mother was a wonderful woman, but never let me know who my true father was. I think she would have done. Unfortunately, she died when I was only 12, 13. Therefore, I had a very, very unusual upbringing. Everybody's different. One of those things. It was not particularly unusual after the war to be in this sort of state, but it's affected the way I think, the way I behave, and the things I do. What's the order, do you reckon, of things? I've got a shirt on, by the way, that sort of sums me up. Let me show you a picture. It's taken for another purpose, but that is the shirt I've got on now, which I realise to you is back to front. If you're very, very clever, you can read it, and it says, if found, return to wife. At the age of 75, that's about my mental state, and I like doing these recordings. I think they may be of interest to somebody, even if it's only my children in years to come. But my mental state. Let me tell you a little story about getting lost. We have a thing at Derby called Westfield, now called something else. Huge shopping centre, and I made the mistake of getting lost in there when shopping with my family. I'm not particularly with it nowadays, and not knowing where they were, it's a huge, huge place. I didn't really know what to do, so I sat on a sofa and pondered. And my family, including my daughter, spoke to a security man. There were several on duty, and said, you know, how do I find this person, meaning me? And the man said, well, we're not supposed to put out things over the microphone unless it's children. I think I I reckon I class, don't you? Anyway, he spotted me eventually, unknown to my children, and took me by the hand to the floor on which my children were sort of wondering what to do next. By the hand, mark you. I'm pretty far gone, but I'm not senile, not yet. And the shirt, I wish I'd had the shirt on. Very interesting experience, but it just shows you at the state that we're at in life. And so I thought I'd do part of this blog some weeks on what's happening in the world. This young girl from Ockbrook, 9 million people over in the world. And I don't know her, but I was brought up in the school that she, well, she was head girl actually. Not the world's worst thing she ever did. But it's dominated the papers this last week, very much so. One of my things, besides saying frequently, oh, that's life, is the statement, are you the driver in life or are you driven? It comes through my mind many, many times. I wonder, I reckoned I was the driver for years. I'm beginning to wonder now that I'm driven. Anyway, thoughts that go through a very geriatric, philosophic gentleman, I hope, of 75. What else? Let me think. This blog, I don't really know why I do it, but in years to come, if somebody wants to read it, I'm pleased. The same with the books. I write books. I am finishing one at the moment. I'll tell you more about it when it's finished very, very shortly. And it gives me pleasure, and I hope it gives you. Lastly, 9 million people. I wandered round a place in Lincolnshire, an antique place, and a lady stalked me, an elderly lady like myself stalked me, and I was a little bit worried at the time, and eventually she stopped me and she said, "Excuse me, sir, are you Lord Bath?" And I'm not. He has 75 wifelets. I have one. Thank you very much. But out of curiosity, this is Lord Bath. I don't know whether you can see that. That is Lord Bath. Yeah? The similarity? Yes? No? Interestingly enough, born out of wedlock, I was brought up with all sorts of tales of my own background, father unknown, and one of the stories, my wife was a skivvy. Now there's a wonderful word, a skivvy in a big house in the village. My mother worked all her life very, very hard to bring up 2 children. My only regret in life is that she didn't live long enough so I could keep her, you know, in the style better than she was accustomed. And one of the stories in this big house I was brought up with, background, your father was somebody who came to the big house. Interesting. Interesting in view of the picture. Yeah? Lord Bath? You never know. Perhaps. Perhaps my family tree, if you like, is rather posh than I thought. You never know, do you? Life is strange. Very, very strange. Consequently, my interest in all things life in general. Sorry it's a bit of a hodgepodge, but it's been playing on my mind this last week. I've not forgotten the thing about childhood, and it does influence me on the way I think, the way I do. We will go back next week to when I was 11, and it's a very, very important part of your life. Not that it's, I'm going to say less than any other, but 11 you're certainly divided from school-wise, from one school to another. Let me tell you about it next week. Cheers, have a good weekend.